What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Every now and then, a game for the Switch will be announced, like a big port, that people just have a hard time believing is real. Think of The Witcher 3, for example. Well, now it looks like another one of those games has been announced for the end of this year, and we're going to go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about a bit of a warning for Elden Ring players with a new exploit that's been discovered that could affect your save game, and we're also going to be going over a new mode for Fortnite that might get me interested in the game again. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below and ring that notification bell so you can keep up to date with all the uploads here on the channel. And we're going to start today with Gran Turismo 7, where we last left off last week. The game was just down. It didn't work. It's about 30 hours of downtime. Then it came back up with update 1.08, and the explanation was 1.07 just broke the game, and they realized that people's save data was at risk, which for people who have been grinding away in Gran Turismo 7, yeah, that'd be pretty bad if they just started losing their save files. Now, with the new update, they did end up rebalancing some of the credit payouts, which, yeah, a lot of it's just with these microtransactions in mind. They don't want you to get too many credits, I guess, too easily, so they had to kind of move some stuff around. Either way, though, despite the game being back up, didn't really go over too well with fans as they took to Metacritic to let everyone know where else, but in the user score, which you can see here, currently sitting at a 2.2. Now, this is on like over 4,500 ratings, so I know we talked about user score and Metacritic not being the greatest overall determining factor when it comes to the quality of a game, because I will say, racing in Gran Turismo 7 is very fun. Like, when it all works, it's a great racing simulator game. Unfortunately, the model around microtransactions here, I think, really hurts it. Obviously, the always online DRM is a whole thing, which we just saw, down for 30 hours, despite the game having a lot of single-player content. In fact, I mean, that's all I've really done, mostly, is just all single player, but you gotta have that online connection. It's certainly frustrating. I am curious, because this is clearly one of their live service games from Sony, if this is just a continuing factor now for Sony going forward with these other like 9 or 10 live service games, because GT Sport was always online, but this seems to be the path that Sony is on currently. So we'll kind of keep an eye out here to see what they have in mind for their other live service titles, but not a great start for Gran Turismo 7 when it comes to the overall PR side of things. Also, we talked about Babylon's Fall and how it had a pretty poor start, especially with concurrent player counts. Well, Square decided to release this here over on the Babylon's Fall Twitter account, basically saying, is the continuing service in danger? No, there are no plans to reduce the scale of development on Babylon's Fall. Content up to the end of Season 2 is now practically complete, and we have started work on Season 3 and beyond. They go on to say that they will continue to provide new content for the game and make improvements based on player feedback. You know, I gotta admit, if you have to ask that question and post this entire thing on Twitter, just is the continuing service in danger? It's probably in danger. I mean, if you look at just on Steam, the concurrent player count, I mean, it's ranging between like 100 people at any one time or 300 people. And live service games need people playing the game. And if they're not, then it'll just slowly fade out, and eventually they'll just turn the servers off and kind of move on from there. I don't know if Babylon's Fall is something they can salvage, but they already have the next season done and they're starting up work on Season 3. So at the very least, they're going to try, and who knows, maybe Square and Platinum can figure it out, but I'm not exactly holding my breath on it. Oh, and we do have an update on Metroid Dread sales numbers, kind of, at least an indication as to where we're trending with this title, and obviously the big playthrough of Balan Wonderworld. We can see this over on Twitter. This is from Christopher Dring saying, Metroid Dread is now the third biggest Metroid game in UK history, behind Metroid Prime 3. It's already the UK's best-selling 2D Metroid. This doesn't include digital sales, so it's quite likely it's now, or will soon be, the #1 Metroid overall. And I have seen many of you ask, okay, when are the numbers coming out from Nintendo? Updated sales figures for the game? Because remember, we were left off at the end of December, 2.74 million copies. Well, if you take a look at Nintendo's investor relations page, you can always go here and just kind of see at the top, Tuesday, May 10th, they will be releasing earnings for the fiscal year ending March 2022. So those will be sales up to March 31, which, I mean, that should at least tell us if it is like above 3 million, because I kind of think it will be at that time. And then it is the best-selling Metroid game ever made, and then we'll finally find out how Balan Wonderworld ends. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with the impossible Switch port. It's a term that's really been invented when we see things like Doom or Doom Eternal, Wolfenstein, and I would say at this time, Witcher 3 is probably the most impressive one. Obviously because the scale of the game, but also the fact that they put everything on a single cartridge. No download required there at all. Well, now it looks like we have another one of these games that's been announced that people really did have to double take and then question and then ask again online, and they're trying to figure this out, and that's Hogwarts Legacy. We had that state of play last week and we talked about it a bit. I'm not a huge Harry Potter person at all, really, but like the game itself, I said looks very ambitious overall. Well, they did release their questions and answers page, their frequently asked questions, and we can see this here where it goes over the platforms. Hogwarts Legacy will be available for PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 4 Pro, Xbox Series X, S, Xbox One consoles, and Nintendo Switch, along with PC, of course. But Nintendo Switch, people saw that and they were, what? This game is going to the Switch? Obviously then the memes ensued of things like the PS1 version of Harry Potter, where like those are the visuals you'll see. But now it comes down to who exactly is porting this game. Sure, it could be in-house at WB or they find someone to do it, but this popped up over on Amazon, and here it is, Hogwarts Legacy for Nintendo Switch. There is something I want to point out, actually two things. One, the price for the Switch does fall in line with the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4 will be $60. The PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X versions have the $70 price tag attached to it there. But at this time, and I think this is going to change, there doesn't appear to be any kind of blue banner on it at all. They do have Avalanche's like logo on there and everything along with WB, but a lot of times we will see as they get closer to release and the official box art drops, you'll have that added, like a download requirement, which is something I'm really expecting here and a little surprised they didn't just drop it on there in the first place. And a lot of it has to do with just the ballooning file sizes, where like we kind of expect this to be 50 gigabytes on the PlayStation 4 or the Xbox One or anything like that. And obviously cartridges are kind of expensive when it comes to producing them and distributing them. So they would go, okay, what's the cheapest cartridge we can get realistically? And how much of the game can we put there? And then have people just download the rest. So at this time, I'm expecting it, but I gotta say, if they get it all on the cartridge and it functions well enough, that might be the most impressive. I mean, we'll see. When it comes out, obviously, and the reviews hit and they talk about how big the world is, Witcher 3, I think, is still the most impressive port, but this technically could dethrone it. Now, another part of the frequently asked questions had to do with multiplayer, always online, anything like that, right? It's single player, they said. There's no co-op, multiplayer, online, anything there, which people were still like, well, hold on, are there going to be microtransactions included in this single player game? Take a look at this though. Over on Twitter from Chandler Wood saying, we've seen this question coming up and want to set the record straight. There are no microtransactions in Hogwarts Legacy. It is kind of funny that that's where we are with these kind of games. It's like, okay, where are the microtransactions? Are they hidden? What's the deal here? And that's sort of what we've been trained to believe now, is that these bigger budget games need microtransactions, or it just doesn't make financial sense for any of these publishers or developers to create these things. And a stark contrast from where we were like 10 years ago. But there we have it. The game's coming to the Switch. We'll see how it turns out, and hey, there won't be any microtransactions. Next up, let's talk about a bit of a warning for Elden Ring players. And I don't think I have to tell anyone out there who's spending a lot of time with Elden Ring that it'd be extremely frustrating to lose your save file. Like if I lost it, that would be terrible. I have like 60 or so hours in, level 130 or something, but I'm going around just finishing up as many of the bosses as I can find, right? And just picking up the different special weapons to fill all of that out. But if like tomorrow it was gone, whew, that would be something. Well, there is currently an exploit that's been discovered where people who will invade your game can actually crash it and sort of trap you. Take a look at this over on Twitter. This is posted up by Elden Ring Update, saying Elden Ring PSA for PC players. There's an exploit going around on PC where hackers will corrupt your save file while you're invaded. First, they will crash your game, and when you open it up, your character will be constantly falling to their death, which they do display that here in an example where they were kicked out of the game back to the Steam launcher. They go back in and they are just constantly falling almost through like the map itself. It's very weird because it just kind of happens out of nowhere and then the game just appears to be completely broken, where you're stuck and your save files pretty much just junk at that point because you can't get out of that loop. Now, they do mention that it's specifically for PC, but I just want to bring this up to everyone just in case this happens, because this is still stuff that people are gathering information around. And it does look like over on Reddit, someone has at least figured out a way to try to get around this if you get stuck in it. So I wanted to bring that to your attention if you are currently stuck in this, where they say every time your game loads, you get a split second for your death, and you must use it to press Alt F4. This closes the game and allows you more time when you relog back in to open your map. The idea being you're trying to close your game and then open it so that you can go into the map and then fast travel essentially to one of the points so you can just kind of break this infinite loop that you were thrown into. And we have been getting updates for Elden Ring. I know one just like nerfed a bunch of very useful stuff in the game, and then they did apparently fix my sword, so I'll be using that a bit more after I just kind of put it away and haven't tried since then, so we'll see. But I would like to think that this is something that they have on their radar and they would work to address because it has blown up online and now everyone's trying to spread awareness, but it's tough because like, it's just someone invades your game and then it's just you get kicked out. I mean, I guess the obvious thing is right now at this time is to not necessarily interact or open up to multiplayer, which you can kind of control in different areas. So just a heads up there, watch out for this exploit. And if you get stuck in it, double check some of these instructions so you can break out of that loop. Next up, let's talk about some good news for Triangle Strategy. Now, Team Asano has been making some pretty cool stuff in that HD 2D style with Octopath Traveler and now Triangle Strategy. Well, we got some sales numbers for it, and typically when a studio or developer, whoever, will post sales numbers, that means they're pretty happy with them and they're probably either in line with expectations or maybe even a bit above. I would say the numbers we're about to talk about here are actually very good for a game that calls back to the old days of tactical RPGs and like the same line with like Final Fantasy Tactics and Triangle Strategy. We can see this was posted up by producer Asano, where they mentioned that 800,000 copies for Triangle Strategy has sold globally in its first 2 weeks, with 200,000 of those 800,000 copies selling in Japan and Asia. And I would say this game is on track to hit 1 million units sold probably in the next week or two, which puts it in line with the Octopath Traveler. It was 1 million copies in its first 3 weeks or so. Bravely Default 2 took a bit longer. That took like 7 or 8 months to get over 900,000 copies. So wow, Triangle Strategy is off and running right now. And I know that's not like Fire Emblem numbers, but I mean, Triangle Strategy, new IP, clearly them having an idea of going back to more of the retro-inspired tactical RPGs, even adopting the HD2D style, which I think is awesome. And I really hope they keep using it because it seems to be catching on. I mean, sure, Octopath Traveler used HD2D, sold over 1 million units pretty quickly, and now it looks like this is on track to do the same, and I'm kind of thinking Live Alive, and again, I don't know if it's just the HD2D style that's doing this, but Live Alive could legitimately end up being a big seller as well, despite it being a game that really hadn't done much at all outside Japan for like decades now. So that's the next one I'm looking towards, because at this point, Triangle Strategy is successful and it will eventually, I'm sure, go to PC, might even go to Xbox, and they throw it on Game Pass, which just means more money for Square and Team Asano to do what they do best, which is create these retro-inspired JRPG games that use HD2D. So exciting stuff and an exciting future, I would say, for Team Asano. In our last bit of news, let's talk about the latest chapter in Season 3 for Fortnite, as it did take away I would say, a core aspect for Fortnite, and I wonder if it's for them to see if there's more interest or brings other people in that weren't playing previously, because I'm actually curious about this and I might check out Fortnite again, which is something I did not expect at all. But we can actually see some of the trailer here. This is for their newest season, Resistance. It brings, of course, new battle pass, has different skins for like Marvel's Doctor Strange, and it's taking away building, which, I mean, that's been like the main mechanic for Fortnite for a long time now. And they have like a load screen that's all battle, no building. They even worked out like a story mode where the story behind it is that it's been taken away or wiped out. Now the Resistance is trying to get it back. And even from there, they have more story to get involved here. But I'm just like curious about the game now that building's been pulled away from it. There are still some modes where there will be building involved. They have like a creative mode, competitive modes, all of that with different maps and everything. We'll still have building, but Fortnite, at least for me, and I'm curious for people out there, and that's actually what I've made the poll question. How do you feel about building in Fortnite? And now that it's, I guess, been removed from a mode, would you be curious about going back even? And that's something I'm wondering for people in the comments below, because building just became kind of annoying. Like, I know it was part of it, and that's what kind of set it aside as being a different battle royale style game where you'd basically blow up with a big tent or a big structure, right? Or like you'd have like a pop-up tent or something and just explode into this massive building, and you'd run across the sky putting floors down, and there was a lot of skill involved there, but half the time I'd see the highlights on YouTube or on Twitch or something. Someone just look at the ground, spin around a bunch, look up, and then they're just like on the skyscraper, and they just put floors and walls everywhere. And it was less about, oh, we're just actually gonna have firefights and stuff, and more about who can build the tallest structure faster. I don't know, maybe that's the Halo brain in me thinking, well, we just dropped on this island, we're finding guns, obviously we have to shoot back and forth at each other and take cover and work together with teammates rather than just build all over the place. The building just never clicked with me, and maybe that's why this mode now seems much more interesting to me anyway. So, hey, I'll check it out and see if it does play better for me without all of the buildings popping up everywhere. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're gonna take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, how do you feel about building being removed from Fortnite's latest mode? Look at that, 80% said I like it. I wasn't a fan of the building, and then 20% said I don't like it. I enjoyed the building. I mean, maybe it wasn't just me who got kind of tired or fatigued of all the building that was going on and felt less like an actual battle royale where you were shooting back and forth and trying to eliminate people. But I do believe you should have modes with building, obviously. Like creation mode makes a lot of sense. And yeah, even just a free-for-all mode where, hey, you want to build as much as you want, go for it. But I at least like the idea of them having some sort of game type where you go in and there's just no building. It's you dropping down an island, you yourself or with a squad, and you guys just try to take each other out until the circle closes all the way in, without having to worry about these random skyscrapers just pop up. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Messiah saying, Polyphony should have made the online career mode its own thing, with a separate garage and wallet, and just called it GT Online, while having the offline mode with its garage and wallet locked from online races, kind of like Rockstar did with Red Dead and Grand Theft Auto. You know, I do believe that Bungie is coming in with Sony to really work on their live service stuff, so I'm hoping this is more of an outlier than anything else when we start seeing these other live service games really roll out from Sony and Bungie with their know-how, considering Polyphony did this with GT Sport. So my thought here, though, is they already kind of went halfway with GT Sport. Why did they go halfway again with Gran Turismo 7? Just go all in with the live service thing. I mean, call it Gran Turismo World, make it free to play, so you get a ton of people involved here, obviously a large concurrent player count. Sure, put it on PC even, just as many platforms as you can there within reason for what Sony's trying to do, and really sync it up to the real life like prices and let people sell their cars. And I mean, think about it, somebody could come in, not necessarily race all the time to gain credits, but buy a car thinking like it may go up in value over the course of several months, years even, and they could play the whole market that way. Like that is like a whole other aspect of realism in the game. And they continue to like just add cars, take cars away, and do all of that. But it just feels like they want to do another half step with a $70 game. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today with Hogwarts Legacy heading to the Switch. How do you think it's gonna look? How do you think it's gonna run? Do you think it's gonna fit it all in a single cartridge? Then also, what about Elden Ring and the situation now with hacking and exploits going on? Let me know if you've run into any of that. And then Fortnite, having a mode without any kind of building. Are you interested in that? And will you go back and try out Fortnite again? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.